Good afternoon. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. In today's Legally Speaking seminar, I would like to talk to you about the timeline for I601A provisional waiver. I601A provisional waiver is the waiver that one can file for and wait for its results in the United States. Usually, to get it, a person will have to have a basis for the immigrant visa approved first, like I-130 form or I-140 form. I-130 form is an immigrant family-based petition, and I-140 form is an immigrant employment-based petition. So let's focus on a specific petition, I-130 form filed by a U.S. citizen for their spouse. As a rule, it's going to take 9 to 12 months to get an approval for the I-130 form filed by a U.S. citizen spouse. You may or may not be called for the interview. Why you will not be called for the interview? Well, because usually when you indicate that a person who is an immigrant is going to seek consular processing rather than adjustment of status, the person probably is not going to be called for the interview, even though recently more and more cases are being called for the interview, even though they will have to go through consular processing. In my experience, if you are or you are not called for the interview, will not affect this 9 to 12 months. Alright, so what's going to happen after you get the approval? After you get the approval, your case will have to be routed to the NVC. And this is where a delay may happen. If you made a mistake, or the government made a mistake, and on I-130 form it was indicated, or the government mistakenly issued I-130 approval stating that you're going to adjust status rather than using consular processing, you will have to file additional form asking the approved petition to be sent to the NVC, and it may take 7 to 8 and sometimes longer, more months to have that happen. But let's say you're lucky one, it didn't happen to you. So now we are already in a 9 to 12 months, and now your case has to be, after approval of I-130, and your case has to be routed to the NVC. The case was routed to the NVC, and typically within 2 months, you're going to receive a message from the NVC stating that now the case is ready and you can start submitting the documents, but most importantly, you have to pay the fees. I-601A waiver cannot be filed unless you pay the immigrant visa fee. So this is your glory day. You paid the fee. And now, basically, you can submit the waiver. So if we calculate all these months that I told you about, typically, it's going to take you at least a year to get to the point when you can submit a waiver from the start of the process when the I-130 was filed. Okay? Sometimes longer depending on various situations I described. Depending on who filed the petition, I-130 form can take longer to be approved. If the case was not routed to the NVC immediately, National Visa Center, again there will be a delay. Okay, you prepared your I-601A waiver. How long will that take? The fastest one I've seen approved, I would say 6 months, but usually it takes longer. So again, you're looking at 6 months to 12 months. Typically, that's how long it's going to take. So from the time the person who was a US citizen started the process for you until the time I-601A is going to get approved, about 2 years. 2 years is going to pass. So what's going to happen afterwards? Let's say your I-601A was approved. What's going to happen? Well, now you're free to finish your NVC process. And this is going to take also a couple of months, and I will explain why. Even if you're very organized and you already have all the documents and you filed your DS-260 form, NVC is going to take time reviewing the documents that you submitted before it's going to say that now your case is ready for the interview, and they're going to schedule the interview for you. But sometimes NVC says, well, this document is missing or that document is missing and we would like to see more. This quality of that document is no good. You're going to resubmit the document that is missing or was missing or mistakenly was said was missing, and the NVC process is going to slow down. It's going to take you longer than a couple of months to go through this process. I would say typically the NVC portion of the case is taking about 3 months, okay? Once the case is ready for the interview, expect the interview usually within about 45 days. Depending on the consulate, but in my experience, usually within 45 to 60 days after the case is set by the NVC that is ready for the interview. All right, you're not done yet. So now you have an interview date. What do you do? Remember the waiver, you had the waiver approved and everything else. What do you do? Well, now you're going to have to schedule medical exam. And you need to schedule your trip to your home country sufficiently in advance for the medical exam to be completed and its results received before the interview, because you will need to bring it in a sealed envelope. All right, so if you calculate all those months, we have about 12 months for the I-130, right? Then there will be waiting time for the NVC to note the case, so usually 30 to 60 days. So now we are at 14 months. Now we file the waiver, we wait maybe another 8 months. So about 2 years will pass, maybe even longer, from the time I-130 was filed by a US citizen until the person is going to be ready to be called for the interview. And if we talk about appearing for the interview, it's even going to take a little bit longer. I would say the general timeline that we're looking at would be 2.5 years. Okay, so if everything goes well at the interview and you were not found inadmissible on any other grounds, like claiming US citizenship or admitting that you committed certain crimes, or admitting that you used false information to obtain immigration benefits, you're going to receive your visa typically within 3 days, okay, 2 weeks, depending on the consulate. Some consulates take longer just because they don't issue the visas. They have to send your passport somewhere else and things like that. But if everything goes well, people usually ask me how long I will have to stay in my country if I have I601A waiver approved. If everything goes well, about 2 weeks, okay, because you will need to arrive early for the medical exam, and right after you get the visa, you'll be able to travel back, but about 2 weeks. So this is a general timeline, approximate timeline for the I601A waiver process. And of course, this timeline may vary depending on what's exactly going on, if everything was done correctly, if there are no government shutdowns or mistakes by the government. So typically we're looking at about 2 years, 2.5 years, I would say. Thank you for watching, and you can learn more about immigration topics on our website, www.shaltsova.com. Thank you.